Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, one and all, or nobody. Who knows? I might just be talking to myself tonight. But we do have some camera news that is going on in the world of cameras. And mostly this is going to be focused probably on Canon, but I'm going to go over multiple different companies and get to go to all the different rumor sites. But so far, what I've seen, most of the rumors are coming out of Canon Rumors. So we're finding out about a new Canon R50 is what they're calling it, and we will go over that. If you're here and you're watching, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and that way this gets this out to more people. Always welcome to jump down in the chat and just talk and let me know, and I'll go over a few different things, and we will check back at the chat at any time that we can. So let me go ahead and check the chat, see if anybody has showed up. This is a very kind of off the cuff type scenario. This is nothing that's going to be I guess too formal. So if you jump down in the chat and let me know, then just you can welcome to talk as much as you would like. Let me quickly go over here and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We can start talking about the first story and we will go right into it. All right. So I will start checking some of the other trade sites here. So this is Sony Alpha Rumors. Um, so far, this just says that Sony has announced some large SD cards. I don't think anybody is very excited about that. We do know that Sony kind of has a ridiculously expensive CF Express Type A cards. So that is not cool. But here, I guess they're talking about the SD card. Okay. I think we've seen 512 gigabyte SD cards now. So they have a 256 gig. Sure. I don't think that's anything new or big right there. Um, all right. Let's see. I'm going to go down, kind of scroll down, see if there's anything new coming out of Sony. I don't think there is. I did check this before I went live, but sometimes I miss stuff and sometimes things get posted, literally right away. So let's go over here. Let's go ahead and head to Nikon Rumors as well. So I will go and I will check through the Black Friday deals that are going on at Adorama and B&H so we can kind of go over that. If you're in the chat and you found some really good deals yourself, then drop them in the chat. That way you can share it with people and we can all kind of get a, better deal. That's always a good one. Okay, so let's see. They're just talking about Black Friday deals right now, Nikon deals. We can go over that ourselves. Okay, so they're saying that Sigma Netherlands claims that a number of mirrorless lenses for the Nikon Z mount will probably be released in 2023. So rumors about a Sigma starting to produce mirrorless lenses for the Nikon Z mount have floated around for a while. Even Sigma's CEO kind of confirmed the rumors in an interview last year. To me, this isn't personally, I don't think that this is too big of a deal. And the reason I say that is maybe it's coming, maybe it's not. But we basically heard the same through line back in 2022 that Sigma was going to be coming to Canon, and it didn't happen. And there might be reasons that Canon may have shut that down themselves. There's kind of been some not necessarily conflicting reports on that. They definitely did go after certain third party lens manufacturers. But that being said, I think like Frono's Photo, he was talking about, he believes that some of the higher quality ones like Sigma and Tamron were going to be able to be made on the RF mount. So we will see. But I guess I just don't put much weight and stock on Sigma coming out and saying this. I think that, of course, if they can come out with these things, they absolutely will. But so far from what I've seen, everybody's been kind of having supply chain issues and they've been lacking a lot of different stuff. So I think that if they can get the supply chain up and I guess to a neutral level, then of course they're going to start exploring new types of stuff. But with a lot of these mounts, I'm pretty sure the Z mount is one of them. It's not an open mount. And if it's an open mount, then it's quite a bit easier. It doesn't take quite as much R&D to create a lens for it. But with Canon for sure, and then I believe the Nikon Z mount, it's a closed mount, so they have to do quite a bit of research and R&D on that type of stuff. So I don't put much stock on it. Maybe you shouldn't either. At least I'm not saying that Nikon isn't great. They already have some great lenses out. But if you're like buying into Nikon thinking that Sigma's going to be there like right around the corner in 2023, well, just don't get your hopes up. I will say that. All right, let me go back here. Let me go back to the chat for a minute. Uh, huh. That's weird. He said, "Hey Matt, so John is here. John is great. So, hey, you went live mid sentence at 9:33. You might have to redo your intro. Fro was only hoping that Sigma rumored deal with Nikon would spur Canon to do the same. Okay, so maybe I am off on that. That is weird about the intro. Maybe I'll redo it. I kind of flubbed the intro, so in a way, I kind of hope I hope this intro wasn't actually there. But if it is, it is. Um, okay, so that is interesting. I was talking about a prior Fronos photo type thing, but maybe you're right in saying this. Maybe this is the case now. I haven't heard him say it recently. I heard him say this a while back ago when there was the whole rumors about people were hearing that was it Viltrex or what was the Samyang, some of the other ones that were kind of getting kicked off or told to quit. I think that's where he was kind of making a point saying it doesn't mean that Sigma and Tamron aren't going to be able to, or that they would eventually. So we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for showing up, John. Always appreciate you. If you're here and you're watching and you can chat, absolutely do that. If you can't, hit that like button, get this out to more people, and we will have a more engaging chat and we'll be able to chat back and forth more. Let me go ahead and jump back over and start sharing the screen again. And we will go back to Nikon Rumors and see if anybody's here. All right. Or see if anybody's here. See if there's any deals going on. Okay, so Nikon Z6 Mark II for $1749. I mean, it's not a bad deal. It's just nothing spectacular as far as that goes. So maybe wait for actually Black Friday. You might see something a little bit better than that. Okay, let me go over here and go to Fuji Rumors because I'm letting people kind of hopefully come in before I go over to like more of the main stories that we know of right now, which is coming from Canon Rumors, and we might just get lucky and see something new going on here. So the XT5 is back on Amazon. Orders are open again, so that's good. I think a lot of people were excited about this camera. Personally, I thought it was a great camera announcement. I think it was really smart what they did to be able to segment the XT5 away from the XH2 line. But I did have a lot of pushback about them not adding a battery grip or not having that capability. I do think there may be some third-party options that will at least give you that battery, but to actually have like a functioning battery grip, they essentially got rid of the little pinholes for that. So it is very disappointing, especially when you're saying that this is a photography first camera. A lot of people want a functionable battery grip, and it's just not going to have it. So that was just a weird absence that I saw a lot of people, not a whole lot of people, but some people quickly pointed that out in my video because at first I was like, this is the perfect camera for what it's wanting to be. But anyways, there was that missing. Managers interviewed about internal camera memory. So X-Pan aspect ratio, ISO button gate, and the XT5S more, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is interesting because I will go over this. I'm not going to talk about this whole thing, but this idea of internal memory on a camera. So at first, just kind of in generally speaking, I know that DJI has an ownership stake in Hasselblad. Hasselblad just came out saying that they had some internal storage. I think DJI has been doing that with their more recent drones on their SSDs on their drones. Now, I think that in theory, this is a good idea, but I don't want it to replace the possibility of external storage, because if you do so, in a way, you're just planning obsolete to make your camera obsolete eventually, because there's only so many different read and writes that you can get out of most SSDs, and they will slow up over time, and they will just mess up over time. So I guess I would caution people from getting too excited about internal storage. Not saying it's not good to have and that there shouldn't be that option as well, but I definitely want it to be an optional thing for, oh, wait, I just forgot a memory card or I just need a little extra space. I don't want that to become the primary thing because that's just going to be something in the camera to me that is more likely to mess up than others. I could be wrong. Drop in the comments or the chat and let me know if you think I am wrong at saying that. All right. Sweepstakes. Nothing big here. Just dills. All right. Let me go back to the chat, check it out, and then we will just go ahead and go to the main story. The main event. All right. So Robert says Canon will not do anything based on rumors unless they become a reality. Okay. You're I think maybe you were talking about the lens situation, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I hope that they do something, but I don't know. Canon isn't scared by Nikon at this point, except at the high end with the Nikon Z or with the Z9. I don't think they'll open the RF mount until they've filled out their line themselves. Robert M says people usually complain about segmentation. The alternative would be fewer cameras. And then Robert says, I do not want internal storage unless there are still two media slots or if it's easily replaceable. Yeah, that's exactly my thought process here. Is I still want those two card slots because you're building in something that it will mess up over time, especially how much information that you're putting on it. If you're shooting a lot and you're shooting a lot of information, it's going to mess up over time. It's going to heat up. I don't know. I like what Robert's saying. Completely add it additionally, as long as you can keep those two card slots that are external. That is what I think as well. I don't as go back to this first part right here. I don't complain personally about segmentation very much. I just think that I just want a camera that does everything. No, I just want a camera that if it's targeting a particular audience, don't do certain stuff that's gonna kind of, I guess, negate the point of your camera. So, perfect, I think, case study for this is the Sony ZV-1. So, or okay, maybe even a better one is the Sony ZV-E10. So the Sony ZV-E10 came out saying it was marketed towards all the vloggers and everything was, this is a vlogger centric. Of course, it was budget camera and all that. The ZV-1 was kind of a similar situation. But then what happened is this camera came out that's, vlogger or content creator, whatever they're kind of marketing it towards. And in the vlogging mode, which was all over their marketing, you had an insane crop in order to have it any kind of stabilization. And if you didn't have it stabilized, well, then you had shaky. I personally would believe, I wouldn't say unusable, but I guess I would say not flattering footage. And it's not going to be professional in any sense of the word. So if you're going to market something towards a particular market, don't just add in things that, like Casey would say, a cripple hammer, because like having that particular thing in the ZV-1 or the ZV-E10, that same situation where ZV-E10 had a sensor in it that was super old. I get these are cheap cameras, but I'm saying if you're marketing towards that, fulfill the purpose that you're marketing towards. At least that's my thought process. Okay, Robert said, okay, as John first said, media degradation from rewriting is real. If an SD card goes bad, get a new card. If an internal storage goes bad, the camera is bricked. Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's, I mean, even if it doesn't go completely wrong, just over time, it's going to get slower. So, I mean, you're saying that too, but I'm just saying in general, some things, it's just not a good idea in my mind. Robert says, I hate to hate on cameras, but the Sony ZV-1F seems like Sony is trolling us. So the ZV-1F is one of those cameras that I felt particularly moronic about. So I was kind of getting, I don't know, probably some of you know here if you watch me live, some of the reasons I made some of the conclusions that I did. I knew that a new ZV camera was coming out like months. I think I was saying it months before anybody was really even talking about it, that it was going to be a new ZV camera. I think I even had it before Sony Alpha Rumors, or at least before they were more nailed down. I like knew, okay, a new ZV camera is coming. At first, I thought it was going to be a new ZVE something, because I've heard that that camera was done really good for them, even though I didn't particularly like it. So I thought it was going to be like a ZVE 20 or something, and maybe they were going to start maybe competing using that same form factor, but competing with, say, an R7 or R10 from Canon. But they didn't do that, and so I kind of found out that it was going to be a wider camera, and I thought, okay, this is the ZV-1 Mark II, or it's going to be a replacement to, what is it, the RX 7 or whatever it was going to be, or the RX, is it RX 8 now? People want an RX 9. I knew it was going to be a point and shoot camera at one particular time. I came out, was like, a ZV-1 Mark II is coming out, making all these spec predictions, and I just had no idea that Sony could literally go under the specs of the ZV-1 and still expect people to buy it. And maybe people did, but to me, if you're going to market this up as like a step up from an iPhone camera, I mean, it's not. It's not for a lot of people, at least. So yeah. Isotech Images said, John is right. I go to sell my camera for an upgrade. I say, oh, excellent condition, except the internal storage does not work. Yeah, that's true, because people already are going, and of course the shutter count is the big thing. When you have a camera that you're selling, people want to know the shutter count. They're going to be saying the same stuff when it comes to, oh, we want, how many. There'll be some tests they'll be able to tell people like the internal write speed. I mean, you can already do that with external SSDs. So what they'll probably have you do is plug in your camera and let me know what is the read write speed of that SSD, and that will probably be what people hear. So yeah, that is a thing. So do y'all want me to go ahead and go on to, I guess, the main story here today? For now, if you're here and you haven't yet, hit that like button. I really very much appreciate it. Keep the chat coming, because we will go back to the chat for sure. Okay, so starting off, we have a fairly big rumor. It's a CR3 coming from Canon Rumors, and it is about a Canon R50 that is, I think, coming fairly soon. I will go directly over to Canon Rumors and we will go over that. So, Canon Rumors, I did, because I actually have this site went down on me last week, so I had a problem, but now they're here. All right, so it says the Canon EOS R50 will be announced Q1 2023. There have been a lot of rumblings over the last month or two about an RS100, a camera rumored to take a similar form factor as the EOS M lineup. We are now told that Canon will announce a camera called the EOS R50 in the first quarter of 2023. This could perhaps be the rumored RS100. Canon's, okay, I'm not even going to say that. Nominal culture isn't really difficult to guess. I'm just can't read apparently, or I don't know that word. Isn't really difficult to guess or assume, which may be what have happened here. Okay, nominal. Okay, they're saying they're naming conviction. I think John has literally put that in a comment for me one time, and I didn't even understand it. Anyways, so their naming convention can be confusing. We can say with a good degree of certainty that the Canon EOS R50 will be the name of what is likely the next camera from Canon. We think there's a good chance that this EOS R50 and a lot more will be announced February ahead of the CP Plus show in Japan. That begins on February 2nd, 2023. Prior to the pandemic, this was a big one for Japanese manufacturers, and we usually saw major announcements. I thought that CP Plus usually, though, maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm mixing up NAB. So CP Plus is a big one. You're right. So I was thinking NAB. It was more for cinema cameras. So I was kind of getting those confused for just a second. But yeah, okay. So that's that. I'm thinking they did over here also say that there's some other, and we can go over this story as well. There are two more APS-C RF mount cameras coming in 2023. During 2022, we finally saw that two APS-C cameras, the R7 and the R10, have been well received and are very polished. So right here, they're talking about the R100, which they believe is probably the R50 at this point. Uh, will Canon keep the Rebel brand alive? RF mount. We're actually a bit out of the loop on this one, whether or not the name Rebel carries the same weight as it did a decade ago. So this is a fairly interesting. I don't know, where do you think it goes from here? I definitely like the idea of the form factor, but I, if I'm not mistaken, the M50 Mark II, I mean, that was already like a mirrorless camera. It's just on an older mount, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, drop in the chat and let me know. Okay, they're making fun of my reading. My reading. I got thrown off once we started talking about. I started talking about that. Uh, okay, the word I stumped you with last week. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did stump me with it. Nomenclature. No, nomenclature. Nomenclature. I did. I was you did stump me. I knew that. I was like, that word looks familiar, and I can't read it. So I guess it's the way that they name things. Robert says, I would expect an R50 to have a built-in EVF like the M50. I would expect an R100 to not have an EVF like the M100. The M50 is a mirrorless camera with an EF mount. Okay, EFM mount. So I am not wrong about that particular tidbit of information there. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess what are the advantages in your mind? So my biggest, I guess, concern here is the M50 is for like the vloggers and stuff, and or not necessarily vloggers, but people who are just getting started, and people who maybe just have a YouTube channel and they're not necessarily trying to be a camera YouTube channel. They're not necessarily trying to get the most cinematic shots. They're just trying to get content of, I don't know, whatever they're doing. It could be cooking, could be anything. And they have an M50 Mark II or whatever. I guess my biggest concern with an R50, if they're bringing it basically to the RF mount, which is what they're saying right here, they don't really have many RFS lenses yet. They have very few, and you're going to need quite a few more lenses if you're going to bring out like that style of camera, because nobody's going to have, I mean, not saying that it can't be done, because you can definitely put a full size or full frame RF lens on an APS-C camera, but especially a camera like this, like the M50. I mean, that's nuts. It is. Wait, the M50 is APS-C. It's not 1 inch, correct? I'm pretty positive in saying that. But now I'm second guessing myself. But either way, yeah, the lenses are going to be the problem. Robert says 100% agree on the lack of lenses, or I 100% agree on the lack of lenses. Yeah, that's going to be confusing. And I think again that's a perfect example of why we need third-party manufacturers on the RF mount. So this is an issue. John Dunham said the Canon M50 was Canon's biggest seller for years, especially in Asia and Europe. Canon wants to retain that user base. I agree. They absolutely need more RFS lenses. Robert said, yes, the M50 is APS-C. Okay, I thought I was right about that, but I didn't want to be talking and then wind up being wrong and sound like a moron more than I'll always already do. Yeah, so I really don't know what they're thinking as far as this lens situation goes. To me, there's still some holes in their RF mount on the full frame side, and then now they're taking it upon themselves to have the RFS mount or whatever, these type of cameras, and that's completely great. But we need third party support, I believe, at this point. There were never that many EF-M lenses. Canon really does not need very many. Okay, so maybe you're right there, and I mean, I'm assuming that you're right. I maybe I'm just out of touch with it, but I mean, there. Am I mistaken? Is there only 2 RFS lenses at this moment? Because I would think there's still more lenses than that. Surely, I will say that um, that is going to be a good thing about this, or maybe a good thing if I'm not. Yeah. So essentially, you had the EF for their full frame. You had the EFS, and then you had the EF-M mount. And I don't know if they were. I don't think most of them were interchangeable. I could be wrong. But if the RF mount is basically just going to be down to 2 different, I mean, I know you can use them all across the board, but if you could go 2 down, I mean that is a good way of focusing your R&D. Yeah. So Robert is saying there's only 2 RFS lenses. So they definitely need more than that. Maybe that's going to be something that they release alongside whatever the R50 camera is. So, yeah. Is this a camera that is even an interest to you, or who, like, is this that type of, I can see it being a good like carry with camera, but what do you expect the specs would be or need to be for this to be considered a win in Canon's category? And I guess even bigger than that, what would the price need to be? Because let's see, right now, let me go look because there is going to be some Black Friday deals. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We go over here to B&H. So Canon M50 Mark II. So what is that going for right now? So that's going for, oh God, what was that? What happened? I don't even know how my fingers did that. So the R50 Mark II is going for $700 with a kit lens. I don't even know if they sell it without a kit lens. Okay, they do. $599 without the kit lens. So $600. Now let's go over to and see the Canon. What does the Canon R10 cost? Okay, so the R10, no. I mean, it's definitely more expensive. I mean, right now they have a sale, Black Friday, I guess, or holiday sale. It's $100 off. It's usually $979. So you definitely have some room for it. But I guess where is it going to come in? Is it going to basically just follow where the M50 Mark II was at and be $600? So if it is, it is. It does show like right here, it's temporarily out of stock. This thing still sells like crazy, and I see a lot of people reviewing it. A lot of people who are like YouTube centric channels who are trying to teach you about, starting a YouTube channel. Like they swear by this camera. They're like, this is the camera, best camera for YouTube, and so I mean, I'm not going to doubt that it was a really good seller, and hopefully they carry over. I think right here, so it says 4K. What is that 4K? Let's check out the specs here, and then maybe we can kind of make a inference on what the other specs may be here. So photo. My dog is crying. That's kind of messed up. He needs to go to the bathroom, so I might have to cut this short. Apparently, he has to go to the bathroom. He's crying right now. I feel terrible. Up to 10 frames per second. Okay, that's the photo. It's 24.2 megapixels. I'm sure it's a fairly old sensor and definitely needs to update, obviously. Articulating screen, nothing special here. What is the video features? Because I know that's what a lot of people are using it for. Am I just missing it here? Where are we at? Okay. Record limit. So 4K 24. Okay. So I guess they would, were they going to bump it much past that in my mind? I'm not saying that resolution is everything, but I don't see this isn't so terribly under spec for a $600 camera to me already. So are they just going to bring it over? To me, if you're bringing it over, you need to do something different or better. I mean, the autofocus, of course, it has eye auto. It's not the Mark II or whatever it is, dual pixel 2. But for what people are using this thing for, this sounds like a perfectly adequate camera. So how much higher are they going to allow this thing to go? Or better are they going to allow this thing to be if they have the R10 right above it? So the price isn't the issue. I'm wondering about the specs at this point. All right. All right. So John says Canon needs a 10 to 18, a couple of others. Right now it's just the 18 to 50 and the 18 to 45. Yeah, definitely you're going to want, with the crop factor, you're going to want something better than that, especially if it's going to be for something like that. Robert says Canon needs a wide angle zoom lens before or at the time of the release of the R50. So he's just agreeing with John essentially. Um, it Robert said it's not temporarily stock. Body only has been discontinued. Wow. Okay. Wow. Owen Wilson here. So I knew a lot of them had been discontinued. I didn't know that the M had been discontinued already. I knew that obviously a lot of their DSLR and older ones. I just did not realize that that camera had been discontinued already. That explains it then on that particular thing. Maybe it's not selling like hotcakes anymore. Okay, so John says that they could use a couple of primes too, 24 millimeter, 35, full frame 36, and 55 equivalent. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm not saying that the primes are great, 100%. But if you're somebody who's buying that particular camera, I don't know if you're the type of person who is really using primes. But I agree that they need in that they need it in the RF S size, because you do have people that with the R10 and the R7 who are definitely going to be more into primes than other cameras. Uh, so I'm looking at the okay. The M50 is the only camera left in that line. Isn't that what? Am I not looking at the M50, or am I just missing what your point here? Oh, I guess you're saying that the body only has been discontinued, but not the kit. So they're still making it technically, but they're not doing it without the kit. So I guess that's what you're saying. Makes more sense now. All right. But so going back to my initial issue here, where do you think the specs need to come in? Because the specs, obviously, the numbers don't always mean everything. Everybody knows that dynamic range is going to be dependent on the way the sensor is and all that type of stuff. But at least on paper and for marketing purposes, the M50 Mark II, it has the 4K. A lot of people who are buying that particular camera might say, "Oh, I just need a 4K camera." It shoot 10 frames per second. So I guess what are the specs or the improvements that you think that it needs to have in order for them to justify people moving over to a mount that is newer, probably more expensive, or definitely more expensive, and still doesn't have that many lenses? So what are your thinking on that? Okay, the M6 Mark II and M200 were discontinued. All right, I just want to make sure. I was looking. Okay, I was looking at the M50 Mark II, so that's still good. Yeah, the M6 did get canceled. I do remember hearing something about that. But to be very real, I get M6 Mark II and M50 Mark II like really mixed up. I get those two cameras mixed up quite often. If I might have said the other one interchangeably here. Robert says it will be like the R6 Mark II. The specs will be the same, but it will be an all-around better camera. So you're saying the specs will be the same as the M50 Mark II? Yeah, I mean, I guess that's That's possible. Do you think they'll go 10-bit in a camera that low end? I mean, they could at this point. Why not? I don't see what would hurt, unless they think it's going to bite too much into the R10. But I think, or is the wait? I guess I should ask: is the R10 even 10-bit, or is that 8-bit still? If you're here and can jump into the chat, talk, and enjoy the conversation. This is a fairly light news week, and so this is going to be a just kind of an open discussion type scenario. We went over the main topics, so if you want to kind of jump back, we can, or rather, you can kind of skip back if that's what you're here for. So Robert says the R10 is 10-bit. Okay, so the R10 is 10-bit. John does not seem to think that the R50 will be 10-bit. I don't really know why it wouldn't be at this point, but maybe it will. People will cut in too much. I just think that, I guess, in a lot of ways, I'm not going to say it's overrated because it is incredible what you can do if you're doing the things that you need to do with it. If you're using a log or stuff like that, 10-bit is amazing. You know, it opened up S-Log 3 for Sony cameras. S-Log 3 was essentially, I wouldn't say unusable, but it wasn't advisable to be used on any 8-bit camera. But once they jumped over to 10-bit, suddenly it kind of opened up the world of S-Log 3 for Sony cameras. So it definitely matters. But on a camera that, I guess, low end, I don't really know if the people are going to be using it that much to be able to get that much extra dynamic range out of it. So maybe it's not. Yeah, Robert's basically saying exactly what I was just saying. The target market of the R50 will not care about 10-bit. The R10 has C-Log 3 10-bit. So yeah, more than likely what is going to happen is it'll be an 8-bit camera with 4K 30, not 4K 24. So they're going to up it to 4K 30. It'll have better autofocus improvements. It'll be 8-bit just with maybe with the regular C-Log, probably. I would say that. And that will be it. That'll probably be it. The fact that the Sony ZV-1F has F-Log 3 is a mockery. Yeah, that's silly. I mean, that's the thing. They put in these cameras like, oh, look at all these features. That I guess is the exact point I'm talking about, Robert, is I don't mind segmentation. And I like that Sony just throws the kitchen sink as far as profiles at you. But a lot of that is, I mean, nobody's going to use that profile, or they shouldn't use that profile if it's an 8-bit camera, especially on that terrible sensor and everything. So yeah, it's ridiculous. So this might be a camera complaining news news day. All right, let me go over here and hopefully this chat can fill up. If you're here, chat. If you can, if you can't, hit that like button, get this out to more people, and we will get a bigger chat going. Let me go ahead and share the screen. We'll go over some of the Black Friday deals and see if there's anything that catches our eye. We'll go overhead and go to the Black Friday deals that we see, or at least what they're calling Black Friday deals, even though it's not Black Friday yet. All right, so B&H, Head Start, big Black Friday photo deals. So you got Fujifilm and Olympus here. You get TVs, hot deals, beat the rush. All right, let's click on them and see what they are. Let's go ahead and see Beat the Rush. These are kind of like their deal zone situation that was going on. I haven't heard much about this company, and maybe that's just my lack of, I guess, looking into drones. But I think I just feel like DJI owns the drone market. But I mean, maybe it's. I mean, that's insane. $3,400 off. So this sounds like a big boy drone here, and um, if people are into drones and they're kind of maybe wanting to step up their game, check out some reviews and look at that, because that looks like a heck of a deal on that. But I have no clue about it. So yeah, I just see that the money savings is there. Featured holiday savings, we have the Nikon D850, $500 off. What are your thoughts on the Nikon D850? Some people swear by this camera like it's the best camera that's ever been made. I think what's Chelsea Northrup talks about that was her favorite camera. Um, is that still a camera that would even be relevant or be hoped for at this particular time? Or I don't know. I guess my point is I can see some people who have older glass who are working professionals just saying, "Hey, I want to stick with this mirrorless," and that's still a good deal for them. I personally wouldn't do it if I was coming somebody new into the market, but yeah. Anyways, $300 off the M1 Pro chip. The 5D Mark IV, similar situation. Um, no, that's 5D, similar situation. I would think of 1DX. Uh, Atomos Shinobi 7-inch. That's just the monitor, so that's not the recorder from what I can see. Let me go back to the chat. I wonder if my wife is watching. My wife, if you happen to be watching this, the dogs really need to go to the restroom, and I don't have to cut everything off super early, but they're calling for me. Okay, so let me go back here to the chat. So Robert is saying that is a solid. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Canon Price Watch is a great website. I swear by it. Okay, I'll need to go check that out. He's saying that it's a solid drone maker. DJI dominates though. Yeah, from every marketing for sure they dominate. I don't know if necessarily the specs do. The D850 is a great camera, but every great Nikon is always the best ever. But every great Nikon is always the best ever. Okay. John says the D850 is very widely considered the best DSLR ever if you don't need video. So, I mean, if you're out there, you're a working professional, you have and some people want a second body. I mean, like some people, they've had maybe the Nikon D850 and they're thinking maybe it's getting a little older and they want a second body of it. I mean, nothing wrong with that. I think most of us who, we're in this space, either we're researching the new cameras or, making videos about the new cameras. We always talk about what's new and great. But at some point you kind of have, I think we kind of lose sight of sometimes what the working professional is actually using. Like I see Frono's Photo do that quite a bit, and it's kind of odd. I mean, I know from the perspective that he's talking about, like he did the review of the RF 135 1.8. He was talking about how it's great. And he was like, if you're a professional, you're going to want this in your bag. And if you're a professional, you're going to want this. Go get it. In my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of professionals have great glass that they've gotten amazing results out of for maybe the last 10 or 20 years. And why do they need to necessarily go buy the newest, greatest stuff? I mean, if they're getting the results that they can, they're getting paid for what they're doing. I'm not saying you don't ever need to step up your game and your equipment. You absolutely do. But if you're really looking at something as just a business, then you got to think of your equipment as tools, and you got to think of your equipment as depreciable assets for your business. So I don't think people are just going to go out and buy the latest and greatest thing all the time if you're actually a professional. I think if you're actually a professional, even if you're getting paid a large sum of money for your photography skills, then a lot of times you're not going to just have the latest and greatest. At least that's my thought process. Robert said it should be obvious that a Nikon Z8 is coming, but no one really know what will be other than but no one really knows what it will be other than between the Nikon Z7 and Z9. Yeah, I think most people are guessing that it will be similar. Or when I say most people, I know Simon's guessing that it's going to be a R5 competitor, and that makes a lot of sense to me. It's kind of hard to try to figure what specs they're going to have in it. I think what threw a lot of people off is the fact that the Nikon Z9 is priced so low. It's priced at $5,500, and I mean, obviously that's still a lot of money, but compared to the other flagship cameras, um, that's it's definitely it undercut them, especially for the specs. Um, and so I think that yeah, it's definitely coming out, but I think it's confusing on what they can actually push out. They need to step up well above the R5 at this point, in my mind, because the R5's a 2-year-old camera, and with all the firmware that they've done with it, they've made it an incredible camera from pretty much everything. John says, "Why do pros need the greatest newest stuff? If they have gear that works and makes them money, they don't. Lots of pros still shoot D50s and 1DXs. I bet." Um, yeah, and so you're both saying that there's a large difference between camera enthusiasts and photographers slash videographers. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that a lot of us are more in the camera enthusiast market, and we like it. And I'm not saying that. I mean, I've made some money with my camera, and I'm sure y'all have as well. Um, but I definitely just kind of like what John is saying here. There's plenty of people who are still shooting the D5, D5s, 1DX, and I even know some people. I think they have uh, the 5D, and they're still shooting with that, as their primary portrait camera. And it also is kind of odd because I remember there was a like a Frono's photo. He had a video talking about he had like a major league baseball, I guess, super big time photographer coming in and critiquing his actual baseball, I guess, photos and all that type of stuff. And I think he was talking about he still shoots with a DSLR that he hasn't switched over to the mirrorless bodies. So I just think that's kind of interesting, especially when it's like, if you're a professional, get this. You're going to need this. No, man. In my mind, if you're a professional, then you probably don't need it. You've probably been getting great stuff for a long time. You probably just need to keep that money, especially with the market that we're going into. All right. Let's see here. All right, let me quickly see. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a good topic. So Robert is asking about the C70 firmware update. I did see it. I didn't watch all of it, so I just saw a little bit about it. One thing is that they added all intra. Um, I'm surprised that the C50 did not have all intra. Um, am I wrong? I think that my let's see. Oh, don't break. I think that this camera, the R5 C, I think it already has it. So I'm surprised that the C50 didn't. Let me check right now. I know this is weird, but let me check it right now. We're doing this live on stream. Oh my gosh, this thing is still booting up. This is nuts. Okay, here we are. All right, let me make sure before I just say stuff that I don't know about. Um, this I know this is so like great content right now. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, no. So this does have all intra, um, or intra frame. So that's all I. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. So this has long op and that, um, and and apparently the C70 is just getting it. So that's one thing. It also got the eye autofocus. I know that was a big thing that they talked about. Um, so that's great. That's the same thing that's in this as well. Um, I guess my biggest question is, what does that mean for this camera? Because I have this camera. Uh, is the eye autofocus gonna work as good as it does in this camera? First off, because this has um, kind of more of the newer sensor and the newer tech that they have in the R5, and also hoped that they would, I guess, improve this. I think that uh, whenever they announce their new cinema line cameras, I think they're going to update the autofocus and hopefully give that thing a little bit better of battery life as well. Uh, okay, uh, so Robert said the C70 only has all eye up to 30 frames per second. Okay. And they said the funny thing is Canon added raw video first. Oops. There, so the C70 only had all eye up to 30 frames. Okay, so that I got that part. Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know. I don't think that that's a super big deal to me, but maybe it is to some people. Uh, no, so it does. It has whatever this new firmware is for the R5. It has eye autofocus, but it's just much slower. Not as good. So yeah, it has it though. So it has whatever the C70 had at this point. So I'm guessing the firmware that the C70 got is similar to what the R5 already has in it, as far as autofocusing goes. Uh, yeah. So Robert is saying they both have eye autofocusing now, but it's doing it in the dual pixel. Say, from firmware updates. No. He said, sorry, John. The R5C has already had it. They had it since launch, from what I know. They've already had it. Now with the firmware updates in the C70, they added it to the C70. The R5C has already had it, but it's just not as responsive as like it's not the same autofocus that's in the video space, or sorry, the photography space. Some people like it better. They think that there's a little bit better of a roll off situation, and I can see that. I guess I just or more like a pull focus type situation. Um, but I do wish that they still had a lot of the same features like the bird autofocus. I'm not saying that don't have all the. I just want everything, I guess is my point. um, uh, Robert says that should mean that the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II can get eye tracking. Yeah, it absolutely can. Yeah, and I guess that was. I don't really know what the excuse was in a way, because I think they did kind of just slap the cinema system in this thing. So yeah, the C300 Mark III can, and the C500 Mark II can as well. But we do know that there's already been some essentially confirmed cinema cameras that are going to be coming from Canon. Like there was an 8K cinema camera that's supposed to be coming out. It was leaked by Canon. There's multiple ones. They had that one that was supposed to have the crazy dynamic range mode, or at least that was a speculative one. But apparently it was going to be like the next level of dual gain ISO, or not dual gain ISO. You know what I'm talking about, where the C70 shoots the highs and the lows, dual gain sensor. So yeah, it was supposed to have like, I think, what did they say? Like they were saying 20 stops or something nuts. We'll see though, because a lot of times you'll say all these different stops that it has, but like the RE, it has, I think it's 17, the new RE, and they might say like they're the Raptor, and others might oh, we have better dynamic range, but when you actually get it and look at it, like the way it rolls off, the way it looks, it's more pleasing to the eye from what I've heard. I've never used either. I guess I'm just kind of talking on my ass in a way. So Robert says, I wish all the cameras could get the R6 2 autofocus. It seems like the best mirrorless autofocus plus the best of cinema AF. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're probably right, but I don't know if there's anything. I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't. I think it is just a firmware away for most camera, because the R6 Mark II essentially just has the same processor with the new sensor. Um, but yeah, I don't see why they couldn't do that, because yeah, Ari has built-in noise reduction. But they don't they have it where you can like turn up and down the film like in the new one. I remember, I think it was Potato Jet had the video where he was talking about you could like make the noise look how you wanted to, essentially like a film, and it would bake it in. Um, so yeah, because yeah, that's interesting the way that they did. I think they did that. To me personally, I would think that you would just want to do that in post, but I thought that was kind of interesting the way that they were like, oh, they had like literally almost LUTs that you could put right in. So Robert says yes, it can be tuned up and down, but not off. Okay, interesting. Well, I appreciate everybody who's here. I don't think there's much more to talk about. I've enjoyed talking. We've been here for an hour. I appreciate everybody here that's watched, and I hope everybody enjoys just conversating, because the camera news it's very sparse at the moment, but I still want to get on here, talk to everybody. I personally enjoy it. Yeah, even if I have a bad day, if I get on here and talk with everybody, talk some cameras, it makes me feel good. And I hope you guys enjoy it as well. But we have been talking for about an hour, and I just don't want to keep rambling about different stuff. Robert says Gerald Undone and Cindy D penalized for noise in their DR test. Okay. Yeah, John says you're gonna have to mop up after the dogs. I know, that's why. That's one of the other reasons I want to cut this thing short. It's because the dogs need to go to the bathroom, and I feel like a jerk because they need to go to the bathroom. And yeah, so there's not a whole lot of news. I enjoy talking to everybody, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut it short tonight. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I will definitely try to come out with another video this week. I don't know if it will be a clipped out from this because there's not much here. Um, but I want to start doing some more reviews, as well as kind of going into more stuff like that. I have this Sigma 1.4 from the 85 1.4. It's amazing lens that I'll probably wind up selling, but that's going to be part of the review. So John said, see ya. See everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you hadn't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everybody for being here. And until next time, peace.